yourself in an environment.
Put yourself in a cold bath. You got to do it, bro. Come on. Trust me.
Yeah. Welcome back for another round of Rapid Fire with co-founder Barrett Kennett. This is where we take your most asked questions and get Barrett to answer them as best you can. Cool.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Sweet. All right. Top question. Number one this week. How do you keep stress low in a high stress role?
Ooh. How do you keep stress low in a high stress role? Like, 'cause sales, the thing that people don't understand about what causes the stress is that it's your self-worth, that your results, how you perform in it. That's why so many people run away from sales, because they don't like the accountability.
Yes.
How well you did. Yeah. The scoreboard involved. But that is a declaration to everybody about what your self-worth is. And it's very, very hard to separate yourself from that. And so what makes it high stress isn't the fact that you just got to show up and get results. That's only part of it. The real cortisol-y, stressy part of it is like, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm a loser, whether you realize it or not. And so how do you combat that? I don't think you necessarily combat it actively. You do what I call wins out of work. So the most important thing that I think for regulating your self-worth is to have other things in your control outside of the results of the job or the business that you own. Right. And so for me, like boxing in the morning is perfect. Right. It's not so much like, it can be weightlifting if you're really passionate about weightlifting. For me, just pick it up, put it down is kind of boring, but something that I'm growing in and getting better in every morning. Right. And also having rich relationships, making time, like that big rocks analogy, making the time for the people who recharge your batteries, your parents, your loved ones, whatever. So wins out of work, I think, is definitely the biggest thing.
What's the big rocks analogy?
So the big rocks, it's an old Stephen Covey one where he had a whole lot of like rocks and then a whole jar of like pebbles and then a whole jar of sand and then one big jar. And what he says, he goes, look, so the big rocks are the things that really matter to you. They're your friends, your family, the stuff that really fills your cup. The pebbles are the things you have to do, your responsibilities, your tasks, the things that you're responsible for. And the sand is the stuff that pops up, the distractions, the issues, whatever. And it was really cool. He pours it in, and you can watch the video on YouTube, but he pours the sand in first. Now, if we let the distractions and the things go in first, and then it pretty much fills it up halfway, then we try and do our tasks, and then it fills it up pretty much to the top. And he goes, if we try and put our rocks in and all the rocks fall out and you don't have any rocks in there, big rocks. And he goes, it just doesn't work. And then he does the same thing again. He's obviously got another set of it. And he said, but if you force time to put the big rocks in first, and then the big rocks all get going. And he goes, then you can put the tasks in and the pebbles all start trickling down around the rocks. And it already looks full. And he goes, and then we worry about the distractions of stuff. And then he puts the sand in and it fills out all around there. And it's perfectly filled to the top. It says, you're fine, you can fit it all in. And so that's the big rock. So how do you then translate that into your business is make time. So if that's a sport or if that's loved ones or if that's an activity or if it's just reading or going to the movies or whatever it is that fills your cup up and recharges your batteries, you make time for that. You force time for that every day and you protect that window. So that's how I would recommend managing stress.
So that's your solution to managing stress in a high pressure environment.
Yeah. Also, don't be a bitch. I'm gonna bleep that out, right? but obviously you need to learn how to not take everything personally, and I find that just comes from being in situations where things go wrong. Like I'm so calm when everything else is like that meme of the dog that's just in the fire going like I'm fine, right? Like I'm like that because I've just been in so many firefights as an entrepreneur and a business owner that I'm like, yeah, it's all right, it'll sort itself out. And you just learn not to panic and not to take everything personally. If somebody doesn't follow through on a commitment, it's not because they disrespect you. They're just not good at following through on commitments yet. That has nothing to do with you. And so you find it gives you a lot more patience and a lot less reactivity. So that's probably the other thing I recommend.
So it sounds like you need more exposure.
Yeah, the way you deal with pressure is more pressure. That's why I think anyone ever who wants to start a business must do low ticket sales. Something like, because low ticket sales, you're copying rejection all day and you've got to be really good to get the results. And you've got to, you're just getting so many reps of dealing with rejection, dealing with failure, missing your targets, figuring out how to evaluate, looking at the numbers, figuring it out. It's like, if the number one skill you need or the number one opportunity you need to be good under pressure is pressure, go find it. You know what I mean?
100%. And what I love about low ticket as well, is you can have a massive day, you can have the best day, you can set a new record for the company on Monday, and then Tuesday come in and you're on a fresh slate again.
Yeah, 100%. You could be the best in the game, but rent's due, right? You're only as good as your last week, and that can, some people really struggle with that because they want to be entitled and they want to just coast on what they deserve. But there's an animalistic nature about a role like this, about a role like sales. But it prepares, like there's a reason I think 80% of CEOs, Fortune 500 CEOs, came from a sales or sales management background. And it just equips you with the skills and it acclimates you.
Awesome. To take that back for this next question, to take you back to what you said at the start about making sure that you can fit everything in. A big part of fitting everything in is discipline. So what would you say is the secret to discipline?
Ooh, I mean, I don't think there's one secret to discipline. Like, what's the biggest secret to discipline? It's not just one thing, which is annoying, but it's actually what I've written. My new book that's obviously getting published now is all about, if you want to be great at anything, it's only 2 steps. Number 1, you know the things you need to know, so you learn the things, and then number 2 is doing the things. So it's the second half of the book is about discipline, hacking performance windows, getting things done effectively. And I think that if there was one big thing for discipline, I would say it's identity. I'd say it's actually creating an identity and reinforcing that identity every day. The analogy I use in the book, I say, like if you imagine like an old pair of scales, right? Like the ones that have like a balance beam and then 2 trays on them. Every time you do something that is in line with that identity, you put a pebble on the tray of, I'm a disciplined person, right? And every time you do something undisciplined, you put a pebble on the scale of undisciplined person. And unfortunately, because the brain likes conserving energy and it likes easy, those pebbles that go onto the not a disciplined person, they weigh twice as much. And so just really getting people to understand that identity, it's a life or death reaction. Like it's how your brain decides to fit into a tribe. And tribes, like the hardware that we use, is used to like 10,000 years ago where we had like 150 people max per tribe. And we were foraging, which means if you weren't carrying your weight, they'd kick you out and then you would get eaten by a tiger, like a saber-toothed tiger. And so it is literally, if someone thinks you're incongruent and you don't fit into what they need, it can literally be life or death. It's why so many people don't like standing out, right? And understanding that you can hack that. If you establish that identity for I am a disciplined person by reinforcing it consistently with disciplined actions and not taking undisciplined actions, you'll find that your brain will, like life or death, defend yourself. It's like a survival instinct to reinforce that identity once you've set it. It's the same as like if I say I'm a healthy person, and if you see me in the shops with, like cigarettes and, peanut butter and ice cream and, all the unhealthy stuff. I know peanut butter's, questionable and I'll get all the health nuts going. Hey, no, it's fine. But you know what I mean? Like high calorie foods. And like, that I'm not passing that test. I'm not being congruent with who I say I am. And it feels awful to get called out in being, it's like a good example, right? What's the number 1 word you would use to describe yourself?
Me.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself?
Fun?
Nah, I don't think so.
I would...
See what I mean? You're like, what? Right? That's the power of identity. And so learning that you can hack that and reinforce that. If you decide I'm a disciplined person and you make those consistent efforts to become that person, you'll find that you just do naturally. You just start doing disciplined things. So I think of every single tip I could give on discipline, create an identity of being disciplined and then follow it up with actions.
I love that. So specifically what just happened there? Why is that such a hard question to answer in terms of identity?
Because it's incongruent. So it's literally, that is a fight or flight. Your amygdala just kicked in and said, fight or flight. Like my life's on the line right now. Because if you're incongruent with who you say you are, and who you say you are is what keeps you in the tribe, you're literally at risk of dying. That's how your brain's perceiving it. So that's why it's such an immediate like what you say? No, it's why people's biggest fear is being caught in a lie.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse. That's why it's hard to tell the truth all the time. But I much prefer that to the alternative of being caught with your pants around your ankles. Or with red hands. That's probably a better, a better example. But you know what I mean? Like that's a perfect, like that feeling of being caught in a lie, that fear of being caught lying, that's incongruence. It's the same feeling.
Definitely. Cool. And so another question, how do you in terms of people struggle with a whole bunch of different weaknesses. And discipline is probably a massive weakness for a lot of people listening. But how do you work around your weaknesses?
I pay people. That's just, like, to be honest, like, if I know it sounds really old. Like, obviously you've got to improve in certain areas, but I've got voracious ADD, as I'm sure most of the viewership would relate, right? But I've got heavy ADD and I'm pretty organized, but I don't like doing administrative tasks. I'm not fast at them. I'm not efficient at them. I get distracted. I do them wrong, right? And I could put effort into being better at administrative tasks, but it's not high value. And if it's not a high value task, I'm going to delegate it. I'm going to find someone who actually likes doing it. Someone who's very organized and orderly and likes having clarity in tasks and doesn't like getting too out of the box. Cool, here you go. And you'll find, like, that's the thing to aspire to, right? Not that I'm like, everything that people should aspire to, but as far as, you'd love to have the option as an entrepreneur to go, can I get someone else to do that for me? And because you'll find that a lot of times they actually enjoy doing it if you pick the right people. But when you're starting out, it's like, how do you get better at weaknesses? Well, you just figure out what habits. You got to break it down. Break it down into, what are the traits that I need to develop here? That's the weakness. It's like, so let's say, give me an example. What's a weakness?
Let's say I'm always showing up late to things.
Okay, perfect. So we're showing up late to things, right? My weakness is my time management skills, right? Well, number one, I got to get the leverage. I got to figure out, why is it important that I become someone who gets there on time? And in reality, if you want to be someone who gets there on time, you've got to be someone who gets there early. And it's like, okay, how do I become somebody who gets there early? What are my traits? Well, what's causing me to get there late? A lot of times it's time blindness. It's, people with ADD actually perceive time differently. Like because of there's less dopamine. The more dopamine in your head, the more you can predict time accurately or stretch it out.
Yeah, okay.
And because we have less of it, we just think we've got more time than we do. It's a real thing. It's not something you want to be a victim to and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't come in on time. I've got ADD, right? No, that's for losers. But it's like, okay, so I need to get there early. I don't perceive time effectively. So what's the habit I need to develop? I need to have an alarm that goes off in my phone that says, get out the door. That gets me there. If traffic is bad, still gets me there 10 minutes early. So maybe I get there half an hour early, and then I treat myself to something when I get there on time. Or if I get there early, I'm going to go treat myself to coffee, or I'm going to go come in and learn some things, or I'm going to make some time to talk to the higher ups or whatever, so that I'm developing. But that's the secret. Is like, how do you develop a weakness? Well, you got to pick the easy, like the smallest thing you can do to get better in that direction, and obsess over it until it's a habit. So that one, it's like, okay, set an alarm, adhere to the alarm. Because if you don't adhere to the alarm, then you're building the habit of not adhering to the alarm, and that's just as bad. And maybe it's two alarms. Maybe it's one's like, get in the shower, and the other one's leave. And because that's sort of it's about breaking it down into the smaller achievable things and then building up towards that identity.
Yeah, awesome. And another question. Now, this is a little bit different. This is more so in a workplace, and you really think that you really want to take that next step and negotiate a high salary or negotiate a better position. How would you go about negotiating in a workplace setting?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, number one, if you're in sales and there's a commission like there, you can get a pay rise very, very quickly just by developing your skills and working hard. But for somebody who's in a job and is an employee, and even as a seller, if you want to increase your base, right? The way that I always do it, the reason people are so afraid to ask for a raise is because that is literally someone telling you your worth. And if I say, hey, I think I'm worth this, and you go, no, you're not, that's like devastating for your self-esteem. And so that's why most people are scared to ask for raises. It's because they just don't want to be told they're not good enough. It's pretty, and it is a frightening thought, right? But the secret isn't about making it binary, right? You don't go to a boss or a manager and say, hey, can I have a raise? Because they only have two options, yes or no. And it doesn't work that way, right? What you want to do, you want to come to them with a problem to solve together. So I'll come in and I'll say, hey, look, I'm really enjoying working here. I think I've done a good job, because that's the other thing people really screw up is they're entitled on what they've done. Like we talked about, like, why would an employer care about what you've done unless they're just scared to lose you, right? But you'd much rather present a future solution that works for them. So I just come in and say, hey, look, I love the company. I'm really having a good time. I'm enjoying the extra responsibility. how would I go about getting a raise? What would you need to see from me in order to give me a raise? Now we open the dialogue in a way that doesn't put any pressure on them. It's like, oh, let me get back to you on that. Okay, cool. Look, I would love to end up around the range of negotiating tip. Make the number you want the lowest amount on a range. So if you're like, so if I want like a 70K base, like, obviously commissions and stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'll say, awesome. Look, I'm thinking somewhere in the range of maybe 70 to 80, or 70 to 85. So if we can try and work in the range of that, that'd be great. And now they're not going to go lower than your high number. So it's just it's just a good negotiating act. But I'll just come in. If I want to raise, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go, hey, rather than saying, hey, can I have a raise? Or, hey, can I have this much? And forcing a binary choice, I'm just going to come in and say, hey, Matt, look, I'm really enjoying the company. I'm loving the culture. I think there's a lot of value I can add. How would I go about getting a raise here? What would you need to see from this? The keyword. What would you need to see from me to get a raise? And normally they'll tell you, or they'll say, let me think about it and get back to you. And that's where you chime in that range. I'd love to be in that sort of 70 to 85 range. So if you could let me know exactly what I need to do, maybe, and you try and put a time window on it as well, because otherwise they'll stretch you out. So maybe if you can, someone, just in the next 3 months or so, what you need to see from me, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say no to someone that does that.
Definitely. And you'd probably be surprised. You might even be able to walk straight out with the amount that you want if you're already putting in work, right?
You miss all the shots you don't get.
Definitely.
But you'd much rather, and sometimes they could so you do that to me, and I hope, I don't get too many of this from our staff, but you come in and say, hey, look, I'd like to increase the base. You do exactly that way. I'll just probably just give you, I might just feel generous and go, what are you getting now? Okay, I'll just give you this.
Yeah, 100%.
And normally I'll put an attack, but I need to see this much results for you, this much work for you, whatever, and it's going to be reviewable. So if I'm not happy with what I see in the next 8 weeks, which is enough time to build the habits, then I want to schedule in a time to review that and see if we want to keep that going or not. When I teach the managers, I call it nothing's for nothing. It's like you don't just give things away. Always try and use that as a mutual benefit.
Definitely. And so on to the next question. In sales, like you mentioned earlier, right? You especially low ticket stuff, you're facing adversity all the time, right? How do you stay resilient when you're being faced with that every single day?
Oh, there's so many good answers. And the easiest one, and this is a really funny one, right? Like, your conscious mind can only actually think of one thing at once. The unconscious, the subconscious does most of the work. The analogy I use for this one is try and wiggle your fingers like this. Do it now. You'll see. Wiggle it. It's really, really easy, right? But now I want you to stop for a second and try and do it again. But this time, try and actively control each finger one at a time. It's much harder, hey?
Yeah.
And that's the difference when you're consciously thinking. The conscious is actually much weaker than the subconscious, but it can only properly, for even people that multitask, there's science that shows you don't actually multitask. You go from one thing to another with a blink in between. Like when you change channels on the TV, it just kind of freezes for a second. It's actually much less efficient.
I'm dog shit at it anyway.
Yeah, I'm rubbish at it. But I'm bad at tasking in general. I don't like multitasking. And so the secret is you can just hack your brain and you can occupy your mind. And so how do you do that? Sing a song between customers. If you're on the phones or door to door in the centers, just keep a song or change them up. Play a song in your head all day. Ideally one that puts you in a good mood, right? So they're singing Halo by Beyonce all day or whatever, right? But you know what I mean? And you'll be amazed at how much you just stay out of your head dealing with the adversities or the rejection or whatever valid excuse would pop up to prevent you from doing it. You just don't dwell on it. I think 60 to 70% of idle thoughts. So if you're just thinking about nothing, if you're just letting your brain wander and not engaged in a task, up to 70% of those thoughts are negative and about yourself.
Yeah.
So just don't have an idle mind, and you'd be amazed at how much better. So when you're pitching, be present in that pitch and enjoy that pitch. And in between pitches, sing or rap a song.
Definitely. Just having conversations and being, especially if you're in an environment where you can be around other people, right? Like, banter, have fun, make sure you're talking with each other.
Yeah, bounce off each other. And that's something I always try and do is try and put people in situations where they can bounce off each other's energy.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that as a business, you then got to mitigate, like teaching
negative.
people not to be negative, because that's way more, that spreads way faster than positivity.
Yeah, you got a really good analogy for that. What was that one? The apple one.
Oh, right. Yeah. So it's just that if you have a rotten apple, an apple that's rotten, and you put it in a basket full of other apples, within 24 hours, every apple around it will start to rot because of that bacteria. And within 48 hours, the whole basket's going to be rotten. And staff work the same way. Like if you've got someone that's, just a negative person, everyone around them is going to be negative. If you've got someone that, if they've got an issue with the company, when you're not around, they're going to try and recruit people to their cause of the company's, doing this or that wrong. It's like the bad guy out of Space Jam. They're just greedy and want your money. It's like, no, you're just not that good at your job, and you're trying to justify why you're not succeeding when other people are.
Yeah.
And so those, it's just cancerous people. It's any kind of negativity will spread like a cancer and it'll hurt you. So just being able to be on top of that and watch for that, I think is quite relevant.
As a manager, how would you identify that?
Normally it's in the results, right? Like obviously people, if you've got people like, people that know that this isn't high school and you're not trying to, no one's dobbing on each other. You're trying to like, it's like a footy team. Like we're trying to win together. If one of the players is showing up drunk every day to practice, you're going to tell the coach that if it's a sport team. But if everyone's got that immature high school mentality of like, no, don't dob on each other. Who told you that? And it's like, bro, go back to high school. Go be a child again, right? Like we're trying to win. So generally you're going to have people in the team that want the team to win and want their team to win and know that negative people or people that are doing the wrong things are going to hurt their progress. They'll normally be like, hey, didn't come from me, but can you please have a conversation with this person about it? It's a very mature way of going about it. Yeah. It's not like, you don't want it to be like, ooh, you're in trouble, HR, he said this or she said that kind of culture. You don't want that. But generally people will let you know. But if they don't, it's in the results. If someone's done poorly for more than 1 week, I promise you, they're not thinking positive things. So it's you just always overreact to underperformance.
Awesome. And then what's the next step as a manager in that situation?
Oh, you make an agreement with them. It's like, hey, like you got to get them to understand why it's bad, why it's not just hurting their progress but everyone else's, and you put a criteria around it. You put some level of expectation of, all right, this isn't sustainable. I like that phrase. This isn't sustainable, right? We need to get it fixed. What's going to happen if we don't fix it? And normally they'll suggest it's like, get rid of me. It's like, okay. Or they'll say, oh, you can have my commissions for the week, whatever. And more often than not, they'll actually suggest a worse punishment than you're thinking. And then it's not about you enforcing anything. It's like, hey, all right, look, we've agreed on this. Please don't make me do it. I don't want to do this. Please don't make me do it. But I'm also not going to go back on my word, right? I've given my word that we're going to shake hands on this. Don't make me go, like, I'm not going to go back on my word, so please don't make me do this.
Yeah, you've also made an agreement on what's best for the team too, right?
And that's where the why comes in. If you just start with the why every time and you need to change a behavior and they agree, it's their idea to do it, not yours. And if it's your idea to do it, it's not going to get done. Or they'll only do it when you're around. But if they actually understand the logic and see how it's going to benefit them, it's like a what's in it for me kind of vibe.
Yeah.
They'll execute it because it's their idea. They might not do it perfectly, but they're gonna do it. It's gonna be a lot more reliable than if you just said, mate, do this or else.
Definitely. Now, so you're an author and you love educating yourself, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is the most effective way to learn things?
The most effective way to learn things in the sense of like how to make it stick or how to like what do you mean by most effective?
What's the easiest way to make sure that you can learn, not just learn, but learn and implement?
Do it right away. On average, it'll take the brain about 7 repetitions of learning something for it to stick, and ideally 7 different ways, because in order to form those synapses, you need to release dopamine, because dopamine and norepinephrine will release, and that will release the acetylcholine, which actually makes the synapses. You don't have to remember any of that, but you just need to know that if something's interesting or new, you're going to retain it better. It's why you always did better in the classes in school with the fun teachers.
Yeah. Because
they know how to make it fun. And that's actually a very valuable component of education. And so learn it a lot of different ways. Try and teach it to someone ASAP, because it's going to give you much more depth on it, as well as a fresh repetition. And try and use it right away to develop the habits, and ideally get what's called a positive feedback loop, where you use it and then your brain gives you dopamine for using it, which then forms the habit. Last tip for learning and making it stick: review it at the end of the day. So always write notes. None of us have a photographic memory, and if you do, awesome, good on you, right? But the majority of people don't. Take notes, whether that's in your phone or in a book, whatever. Writing is more effective, but phones are more convenient. So whatever floats your boat. And set a reminder to review it every day. So if you like just have an alarm that goes off at 7 p.m. every day that says review what you learned today, that does the last real bit of legwork on solidifying and integrating those synapses in your brain.
Yeah, well, that's the issue with self-help junkies, right? People that just read and read and read and get so much education that they can't actually implement any of it because they're reading a book on how to negotiate with people and they work as an accountant.
Yeah, and they do all this, and I get a lot of hate for this, but it's the breathwork bros, it's the ice bath bros, like the guys that they don't make any money, but then they're like, no, it's not about the money, man. It's about connecting with the spirit and the self, and really, overcoming your weakness. And there's something to be said for doing that, but it's the same as conspiracy theorists. Like they know a lot about something irrelevant, and they want to like make themselves seem important, and it's like, come on, bro, you got to do it. And for me, it's like, I know all of it. I know I could quote the literature, the scientific literature, better than any of those guys could. I know the benefits. I just don't like it. So I don't do it. Like, I have other ways of getting dopamine in my morning. Like,
without freezing.
Yeah. So, miss me with that.
Yeah.
So you get, it's like, you just don't want to be a breathwork bro. Like where it's like you're not actually applying anything relevant. You're living a wholesome life. And then they go and become a life coach. And it's like, oh, bro, you're so good at life that you want to teach other people how to do it? Like, piss off.
Yeah. 21.
20 years old, you just turned 21 and they're a life coach telling people how to life. All right, bro.
Yeah, I think there's so much in that, making sure that you're putting yourself in an environment.
Put yourself in a cold bath. You got to do it, bro. Come on. Trust me.
Yeah, but just putting yourself in a position where you can go to work every day and actually work on the skills that you want to level up on, right? One of our good mates, business partner, Patrick, was talking about how he used to be a plasterer before he got into sales. And he would read, self-help stuff, how to win friends and influence people, those kind of books, but would go to work and deal with tradies all day and not actually get to implement anything. And the moment he got into a sales-based role, now the education that he's reading, he can actually go to work and get reps in straight away. So I think another point to that is make sure that you're in an environment that you can actually put in the work every single day to get better at it.
Yeah, and that doesn't have to be a sales job. Like some people just don't handle pressure well, or they're just introverted and they just even though they benefit from learning it, it's just too draining. It's not a sustainable job for them. Sure, go join Toastmasters and learn how to public speak. You can apply that stuff there. Go, join start a side hustle where you have to sell and you have to cold call.
Yeah,
like the guy that does our business partner on Hero Channel. Like, just started randomly calling businesses who had crap websites and said, hey, I can build your website. Didn't even know how to build websites. Just went on Fiverr, and just learned and educated himself on how to do it once he had a client base, and is now killing it doing that. Like, you don't have to quit your day job to be able to apply cool stuff. Just get around good people and give yourself an opportunity that you can level up, and you'd be amazed at, what you can do. So it's not sales specific. It's just sales is just the easiest way to get it.
100%. So should you work for free?
Free's tough, right? Free is tough. You should not be worried about money if it gets you around the right people, right? I mean, free is a tough one. Free is definitely not for an extended period of time. But experience and skills is definitely more valuable than a wage. And a wage, if that's eating up a lot of your time and you're not in something that you can grow in, yes, we've got a problem. But there's a lot of time in the day. People, if you just take out how often you scroll on social media, that's 4 hours a day on average. There's a lot you can do with that 4 hours. Definitely. You can wake up a little earlier and no one's messaging. That's why I wake up at 4:30 every day. Is because from then until after 7:30, my phone blows up and I can't keep up with the messages. But before then, it's my time. No one else is up. No one else is doing it. Or if they are, they're doing what I'm doing, which is not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
And whether that's writing or training or whatever. So I think it's relevant.
Yeah. So what do you do in the mornings?
This is another one that I put in the book, right? I call it a great routine, right? There's other variations of it, like savers from Miracle Morning or whatever. But I find that this one's the most practical for me because there's only so much time. I don't want to spend, an hour meditating in the morning or whatever.
And half an hour ice bathing.
Of course, Cam is the ice bath, right? The what I do every morning, I call it GREAT, GREAT. I get up on time. So the biggest thing is you do not, under any circumstance, hit the snooze button, because when you wake up, your brain's in what's called a theta state. It's very impressionable.
Yep.
It's just going slower than usual. So that's why if you wake up and you see like an article on social media that makes you angry, or you've had a fight with your missus or your partner or whatever, and they've given you this like paragraph, message telling you why you suck, like that can ruin your whole day. So you're very impressionable for priming in that state. And if the first thing you do is put off something you don't feel like doing, you're programming yourself to be undisciplined that day. So number one, get up on time, no snooze. Number two is read. Reading, it's like a workout for your brain. Actually, not just audiobooking, but actually physically reading. It makes your brain work better and work smarter. And you're obviously leveling up. And because if you're doing it early enough in the day, you're programming your brain with what's important, and it values learning, then you're not going to be as stressed about results if you're more focused on growth. So that's going to help regulate your mood throughout the day as well. So it's read. A is affirmations, right? And that doesn't just have to be, I'm enough, I'm worthy, whatever. If that works for you, go for it, right? Like, it is effective for programming a part of your brain called the posterior cingulate cortex, responsible for identity. So it is a good way to form identity. Just do it in the car when no one can hear you, right? But they don't just have to be verbal. They can be written, which is literally just as simple as planning out your goals. The best way to do them is present tense, not I will be a millionaire. It's I am a millionaire, because you start acting like that. But present tense, written affirmations, or just writing your goals down. Writing your goals down every day, it just refreshes your brain. Otherwise, we just forget what our goals are. We actually do. And I think that being able to put that front and center every day is really helpful. So written, verbal, and then visualization is really, really good. Actually creating a movie for yourself that you can play. I do it in the shower every day, of like 5 or 10 years in the future, what that perfect day looks like. Because the circuitry your brain uses in the hippocampus to imagine something is the same circuitry it uses to remember something, right? And so you trick your brain subconsciously without realizing into thinking it already happened, which again is just super incredible for certainty, but is also really good for holding you accountable to who you need to be. So get up, read, affirmations, exercise. Exercising in the morning is important. Number one, it's that wins out of work, like we spoke about. Just having something that you can base your self-worth on, like just diversifying your self-worth investments, right?
Yeah.
That you can have controllable wins in the morning, I think is really beneficial. But also it puts oxygen in your brain and makes you smarter through the day. So exercise is really good. And then the last one is triage your priorities. So that's how I recommend planning is like when you go into a hospital. So triaging is like, if I've dislocated my pinky and I come into a hospital and I've been waiting for an hour, but then someone comes in and their arm's been chopped off, the hospital is going to see that person first. They triage them and say, that's more important than a dislocated finger. So I'm going to be waiting longer, right? And you've got to do that with your tasks each day, because otherwise it's like big rocks analogy. If you do the stuff that's not relevant, you're going to get distracted. I say you want to look at the road, not the bugs on the windshield, right? So the stuff that pops up in your face and distracts you, you got to plan every morning. That's going to come after I complete this one first. So if you're writing, I'm going to write 2 chapters before I do anything else. Or if I'm working with a new rep, I'm going to make sure that their rapport skills are where they need to be before I move on to anything else. And so triaging in order, what are the 3 most important things I need to do in order today, and doing them, that just makes your day way more efficient. So get up, read, exercise, affirmations, triage priorities.
Awesome. How cool is that?
Except I did it the wrong way. I put A before E, but whatever.
This is one of your quotes actually that I wrote down before because I love it. I think it's one of yours.
I'll take credit for it either way.
If you want to double your rate of success, you have to triple your rate of failure.
Yeah, I think I pilfered that from something Brian Tracy related. He's the man, but I definitely use it all the time. It's like people are just scared to fail. And the relevance of that quote of double your rate of success, you need to triple your rate of failure is all about changing people's relationship with failure. People are scared because we're programmed for that in high school. We go to high school and what happens? We put a test in and we get a big red X next to everything we do wrong. And we're like, we don't want that. And it's like, that's not how business works. That's not how life works. Like, you screw up. We've launched, remember cheat code? Like we've launched businesses that just we wasted 20 grand on it. It's like, cool. I learned a ton about that industry and about how to market that. And next time when something similar pops up, I'm going to be way better for it. And I just think people are scared to fail, but it's like that's your best teacher. That's the thing that it makes you do more because you're not afraid of it. And you learn way more from your losses than you do from your wins.
So how do you overcome setbacks?
How do you overcome setbacks? You just evaluate them. And this is the difference between evaluation and criticism. They're very different things because criticism, you're just looking at what you've done wrong. Whereas evaluation, I'm looking at what went well and how to keep doing more of that, and what didn't go well and how to improve that. And if you're starting it with, I would call it wins and learns, but if you're starting it with what you did well, it automatically primes you to feel better. I mean, if you want to go deep on the science of it, it's what's called a depressive cascade. So I didn't perform well today, therefore I let everyone down. Therefore, people who let everyone down are worthless. Therefore, I'm worthless. I suck. And then they come in the next day and they're just mopey and depressed, right? And in order to what's called bind the cascade, so stop it from doing that tumble, you just start with things you did well first. And that gives you enough happy chemicals to go, well, at least then I'm not a terrible person. And it stops that trickle down. And so that's how I would say.
Yeah, sick. And so what's the best way for young people? This is more so when they're climbing up the ranks, right? What's the best way for young people to gain respect in a business?
I don't be an asshole. The number one way to earn respect of your peers, right, is don't be an asshole. It's the opposite of someone that just does what you tell them. So if I come to you for advice and you don't use it, we've all got that friend that they come to you for advice and then you give it to them and they never use it. That those people are annoying. They'll lose respect. But if I can rely on you and count on you, and if I get ROI on the advice that I give you, I've now got stake in your success. And there's a real temptation to want to take you under my wing because I'm like, this guy does what he said. And when I can say, hey, look how well he's doing, part of me is getting credit for that. And that's a serotonin boost. So I think that the best way to earn respect is just implement the advice you get, which I know is counterintuitive because you think it's like work hard, show up, be on time. Yeah, do all those things as well. Like there's no diminishing returns on being a hard worker and a good guy or girl. But the way that you can earn respect within a business is just be good ROI for the people that want to help you.
I think that's a great way to put it. Because it is, the people that you want to give more time to are the people that you get the best ROI.
You get ROI. And the people I want to give less time to are the ones that I just can't rely on. I say, hey, I'm giving you this advice. I want you to use it. And then they use it for a day and then they stop using it. It's like, I don't get return on my time. My time's valuable. I can't keep giving it to you if you keep not doing the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So reliability is huge.
Awesome. Well, that was 10 questions. We nailed it.
Cool. See you next month, mate. Cool. And enjoy. And also, please look, we're trying to pump this thing up to 100,000 followers as quick as we can. 100 followers, subscribers. Like it. And if you see anything that you like here that is relevant for someone you know who works in sales or is an entrepreneur or would just get value from this kind of stuff, please share it. Where, like, I'm kind of a wanker, but he's a legend, so do it for him.
Do it for me.
But we really want to be able to touch people's lives. Like for us, the motive, like we've already got a pumping business, we've already done a lot of things. This isn't financially motivated for us. Where our why and what drives us is our desire to help people start their journey or empower them when they're on it and give them the skills or the tools or the support they need to get through it. And we want to be able to do that at a much bigger reach than we're currently doing it. And that's the point of us doing it. So if you think there's anyone that we can help with this, we're going to keep this content pumping. We're fully committed to it. And if you want to share it to the people that need it, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Cheers.